Jungkook devastated. Jimin forced to smile in front of fans. What really happened? Was that smile a lie? The moment the camera captured Jimin's face, fans froze. His smile, one that once lit up arenas, felt hollow, mechanical, like a crack in a porcelain mask. It wasn't just the curve of his lips, but the emptiness in his eyes. Could the sunshine of BTS be concealing deep emotional turmoil? And why is Jungkook, arguably his closest ally, visibly shaken? In just 10 seconds of fan-captured footage, a wave of concern exploded across social media platforms. Jimin, standing under a spotlight, offered what should have been a joyful, genuine smile. But millions saw through it. The warmth was gone. The glow, absent. This wasn't the Jimin they had grown to love. His expression sent chills down the spine of every viewer who knew him just well enough to notice when something was wrong. Was this smile a facade forced upon him by an invisible pressure? And if so, who's responsible? Fans immediately dissected the clip frame by frame. Side-by-side comparisons flooded the digital space. His eyes always used to smile first, one army member wrote. But now, it looks like he's carrying something too heavy for us to see. The evidence was alarming. A clenched jawline, unusually tight cheek muscles, and a gaze that seemed lost in a distant thought rather than focused on the moment. What was he thinking? Why did he look so restrained? Theories quickly spiraled. Some believed it was exhaustion, nothing more. But others, those who've watched him for years, felt it deeper than that. This wasn't fatigue. This was suppression. Emotional suppression. And at the center of it all lies a swirl of unresolved rumors, suspected internal conflict, and an increasingly unsettling silence. What made the situation even more alarming was Jungkook's reaction, or lack thereof. In previous appearances, the two shared an unspoken bond. A glance, a nudge, a laugh that didn't need words. But now, Jungkook appeared tense, distracted, and visibly emotional. His recent message on Weverse added fuel to an already growing fire. "If you hurt him, you hurt me." A simple sentence, but one that sent shockwaves throughout the fandom. Was he referring to the way Jimin was being treated behind the scenes? Was there more going on than what meets the eye? Fans aren't strangers to reading between the lines. From Jimin's sporadic Instagram posts, often poetic, often cryptic, to his selective public appearances, everything points toward a fracture forming beneath the surface. Lyrics he shared about feeling invisible and waiting in the silence have taken on a new weight. And for many, they now seem less like artistic metaphors and more like coded cries for help. Speculation intensified after several scheduled solo activities for Jimin were either postponed or never publicly acknowledged, while other members seemingly progressed with uninterrupted momentum. This discrepancy didn't go unnoticed. Why was his solo tour quietly delayed? Why did promotional material featuring him get shelved while others thrived? At the same time, Jimin's absence from certain recent appearances with Jungkook and Taeyong raised eyebrows. Fans pointed out that in photo shoots and interviews, the dynamic trio had become a duo. "He's being left out," a fan tweeted. Not by choice, but by design. While no official statement confirmed such a divide, the perception among loyal followers began to crystallize. Jimin wasn't just isolated, he was being sidelined. Inside the fandom, grief morphed into activism. Trending hashtags like #ProtectJimin, #LetJimin and #FreeJimin emerged as calls to action. Fans demanded transparency from his management and emotional support for an artist who has spent years uplifting millions. "We are his voice when he's too tired to speak," one supporter posted, gaining hundreds of thousands of likes. It was no longer just about protecting an idol, it was about safeguarding a human being. The tension is not imaginary. According to industry insiders, speaking anonymously in closed forums, Jimin's creative team had been on standby for months, ready to launch projects that were repeatedly stalled. Deadlines came and went. Promises were made and broken. And throughout it all, Jimin remained professional. He didn't lash out publicly. He didn't speak ill. He simply kept smiling, until that smile stopped reaching his eyes. The contrast is painful. This is the same Jimin who once stood center stage, comforting fans through tears during difficult eras. The same Jimin who whispered words of reassurance during global crises. The same Jimin who promised fans they would never walk alone. And now, he walks quietly, carrying burdens we were never meant to see. Some have theorized that the root cause of this shift lies within internal favoritism, bureaucratic red tape, and shifting group dynamics. A subtle yet growing emotional distance has been noticed between Jimin and certain company figures, and even within the group itself. While some connections remain strong, particularly with Jungkook, others appear strained. And that strain is bleeding into the public eye. It's not just the fans who are watching. Other artists, collaborators, and even former hybe staff members have subtly shown support. Likes on fan posts, quiet retweets, and cryptic comments have only strengthened the collective suspicion that something isn't right. A former employee, posting anonymously, hinted that Jimin's projects were repeatedly shelved due to internal decisions, despite full readiness and strong potential. And yet, in the face of this mistreatment, Jimin has carried himself with unwavering grace. He hasn't aired grievances. He hasn't staged a rebellion. He continues to represent the group with pride, even when it hurts, even when the applause fades, even when his presence is minimized. And that, ironically, is what makes the situation unbearable for many. This quiet endurance is being interpreted not as consent, but as consequence, a punishment, a silencing. Perhaps the most haunting part of this entire narrative is the unspoken language that now defines Jimin's interaction with his fans. Every pause, every song lyric, every slight gesture is now seen as part of a hidden code. Fans are decoding his silence, searching for meaning in what he doesn't say, because the man who once gave them everything now seems unable or unwilling to speak his truth. One quote from Jimin, resurfacing in recent weeks, has become a rallying cry. Even if I don't say anything, you'll understand me. It now carries the weight of prophecy, because fans do understand, not through official statements, not through polished press releases, but through instinct, through connection, through a deep, emotional understanding built over years of mutual trust. The emotional toll is visible on both sides of the screen. Fans are tired of smiling for the camera when the man behind it is clearly struggling. They see the change, they feel the shift, and they're no longer content to remain passive. Jungkook's visible frustration adds another layer. During a recent event, observers noted how quickly his mood shifted when Jimin's name was mentioned. His demeanor darkened, his smile faded. And then came the Weverse post, a raw, direct message that many believe was not aimed at fans, but at the very system that has kept Jimin's voice subdued. If you hurt him, you hurt me. That wasn't just affection. That was defiance. So now the questions hang heavier than ever. Is Jimin being silenced? Are his wings being clipped? And if so, why? The silence from the company is deafening, but the voices from fans are getting louder. They're not just defending Jimin as a performer, they're defending him as a person who has given too much and received too little in return. A person who deserves more than applause. He deserves peace. The outrage isn't born from entitlement. It's born from love, from recognition, from the painful realization that the artist they cherish might be suffering in silence. And they refuse to let that suffering go unnoticed. At its core, this is no longer just about a smile. It's about the cracks forming beneath the surface of a carefully curated world. It's about the dangerous expectations placed upon artists to remain perpetually cheerful. It's about the false narrative that equates professionalism with silence. Jimin is not a product. He is not a brand. He is a person, one whose emotional well-being matters just as much as his performances. Fans see that now more than ever. And they are demanding a world where Jimin doesn't have to smile through pain. Until that world exists, they will fight. With hashtags, with love, with vigilance. Because for them, Jimin isn't just part of BTS. He is the soul of it. And a soul like his deserves to shine, freely, fully, and without fear. As the footage of that forced smile continues to circulate, one thing becomes increasingly clear. It wasn't just a moment. It was a message. A quiet, haunting reminder that even stars can dim. But unlike the industry that may seek to mute him, the fans have made one thing clear. Jimin will not be forgotten. Not on their watch. The smile that shattered the illusion. A deeper look at Jimin's controversial expression and the unspoken burden behind it in a world where public image is meticulously curated and perception often overshadows reality. A 10-second clip was all it took to destabilize the emotional equilibrium of millions. Jimin, known for his consistent warmth and emotional transparency, appeared on camera with a smile. But this time, it did not bring comfort. Instead, it sparked a wave of collective unease. What should have been a routine interaction became an international moment of crisis. Why did such a short clip ignite so much speculation? What does it reveal about the state of modern fandom, media literacy, and our understanding of emotional authenticity? To the trained eye, the shift in Jimin's demeanor is not easily dismissed. The tension in his jawline, the absence of joy in his eyes, the unsettling stillness of his expression, these are not the traits of someone at peace. They are symptoms. But of what, precisely? Fatigue? Disillusionment? Emotional injury? Or could it be that this entire narrative, as compelling as it seems, is being inflated by a cycle of emotional sensationalism? This is the uncomfortable truth we must confront. Is Jimin truly suffering in silence? Or are we, as a collective audience, projecting our own anxieties onto an image that was never meant to carry so much weight? Thousands of speculative threads, video breakdowns, and emotional testimonials have flooded platforms such as TikTok, X, formerly Twitter, YouTube, and Fan.
Forum.
The viral spread of concern has blurred the line between empathy and obsession. But here lies the most pressing question of all. Are we reacting to reality, or to an illusion shaped by algorithmic engagement and parasocial familiarity? This article, like the many others that have surfaced in recent weeks, builds upon data gathered from these widely accessible but inherently unregulated platforms. The sentiments captured are real, painfully so. Fans are not imagining the dissonance they perceive. But perception alone does not constitute proof. Without confirmation from verified sources, without context from those directly involved, we are left navigating a dangerous terrain, one where emotional resonance is mistaken for factual accuracy. What if this moment, magnified to such extreme proportions, was never meant to carry this level of scrutiny? What if Jimin's expression, as uncomfortable as it may appear, was simply the product of exhaustion, a passing moment caught on camera, misinterpreted by millions, and yet the counterpoint demands equal consideration? What if the smile was forced? What if the silence does reflect something deeper? And if so, what responsibility do we bear in our consumption and dissemination of that pain? The fan community, known for its devotion, now finds itself at a crossroads. Emotional loyalty is colliding with intellectual responsibility. The heart screams in solidarity, but the mind must ask, what is real? Are these whispers of neglect and favoritism rooted in truth? Or are they constructed narratives fueled by selective screenshots and confirmation bias? The implications are profound. If Jimin is indeed being sidelined, minimized, or silenced, then this is a matter that transcends fandom. It becomes a workplace issue, a human rights concern, a case study in the exploitation of public figures under the guise of corporate control. But if, conversely, these assumptions are based on misinterpretations, then we are participating in a collective act of emotional projection, potentially doing more harm than good. This is not the first time such speculation has overtaken public discourse. But the intensity with which it has unfolded in this instance reveals a deeper truth about the modern entertainment ecosystem. The hunger for emotional proximity has become insatiable. And in that hunger, the boundaries between reality and performance have dissolved. Consider the origin of this controversy. A clip no longer than 10 seconds. No spoken words. No confession. Just a smile. Barely perceptible, yet dissected with forensic intensity. Is this evidence of a larger problem, or the product of an increasingly invasive digital culture that refuses to let its idols simply be? More importantly, have we, individually and collectively, become complicit in a form of emotional surveillance that masquerades as care? These are not rhetorical questions. They demand rigorous self-reflection. They challenge us to examine the ethics of modern fandom. At what point does concern become intrusion? When does advocacy transform into coercion? Even as we call for Jimin's protection, are we also allowing him the dignity of privacy? Even as we demand transparency, are we respecting his right to speak, or not speak, on his own terms? The hashtags that now dominate the conversation, hashtag protect Jimin, hashtag free Jimin, hashtag let Jimin shine, represent more than fan frustration. They reveal a deep moral urgency. But urgency without verification can devolve into hysteria. And hysteria, left unchecked, can obscure the very truth it seeks to illuminate. It is essential to remember that much of the information surrounding this issue is drawn from sources lacking formal verification. Social media, for all its reach and immediacy, is not a journalistic institution. It thrives on virality, not veracity. While platforms like TikTok and YouTube offer powerful means of storytelling, they are also susceptible to manipulation, selective editing, and context collapse. So we ask again, do you believe this story? Entirely? Partially? Not at all. Do you trust the narrative being presented? Or do you feel uneasy about how easily emotional narratives can be amplified without verification? Do you accept the idea that a smile, however strained, can serve as the sole indicator of systemic mistreatment? Or do you believe that something deeper, more insidious, might be at play, either within the system or within ourselves? It is not enough to feel. We must think that we must confront the possibility that this controversy is not just about Jimin, but about us. Our expectations, our interpretations, our insistence that public figures constantly affirm our emotional investments with visible reassurance. In the absence of that reassurance, we panic. We assume betrayal. We demand explanation. And yet, we rarely consider the possibility that our demands might contribute to the very silence we find so distressing. What happens when the desire to protect becomes pressure? When the wish to understand morphs into interrogation? Jimin, like many artists, may be navigating personal and professional conflicts we cannot begin to comprehend. And if his current demeanor reflects internal struggle, then the respectful course of action is not to diagnose, speculate, or campaign without evidence, but to wait, to listen, to allow space that in the end, whether Jimin is in pain or not, whether Jungkook's message was personal or political, whether this entire sequence is a genuine emotional crisis or an exaggerated interpretation, these are not conclusions to be reached lightly. They require patience. They demand context. And above all, they necessitate critical thought. To the reader, pause, reflect, ask yourself not only what you believe, but why you believe it. Interrogate the sources of your information. Evaluate the intentions behind the narratives you are consuming. Are you seeking truth or affirmation? Are you engaging in advocacy or fueling controversy? This is the age of deep emotional immersion. But with that immersion comes responsibility. The responsibility to discern between fact and fiction, between sincerity and spectacle, between solidarity and speculation. We end not with answers, but with a challenge. A challenge to every reader, every fan, every voice participating in this discourse. Be critical, be cautious, be aware. Jimin deserves the truth, so do you. Let's not lose it in the noise.